by the President of the United States. Talk about how people stop sleeping on the street, homeless, while we're cutting Section 8 programs in housing. Oh, we could go on about this all day, but I reserve the balance of my time so I can rest a bit, let them say what they want to say so I can come back and tell them what they need to hear.
Denouncing communism and socialism is the right thing to do for the Democratic Party. And if some of the highest, most important members of the Democratic Party on that side of the aisle were to vote with us, they would be doing a very favor to the Republic, and not only that, to the Democratic Party.
Did you catch that? No, seriously, go back to those first few seconds. That look says everything. It's the kind of moment where you can almost see the shift happening in real time, like someone who's been in control for decades suddenly realizing this isn't going to go the way they expected. Because this isn't the usual back and forth. You've heard the talking points before, the polished speeches, the feel-good framing of big ideas. But this time, it doesn't land the same way. Not when there's someone across the table who's not buying it, not playing along, and actually pushing back with real-world experience. And that's what makes this different. This isn't just politics. It's a collision between two completely different realities, one built inside the system and another shaped by people who've actually lived through the consequences of the policies being debated. That tension, you can feel it immediately. If you're tired of the same recycled narratives and want to see what happens when someone finally challenges them head-on, this clip delivers. Watch this all the way through, because what unfolds here explains a lot more than they probably intended.
And Republicans are confusing socialism with despotism or authoritarianism. Despots try to control the press, education, the system of justice. Despots send the military against their own citizens. Despots try to control the economy. Despots arrest their own citizens, including children, in the middle of the night. The Republicans have tried to confuse you on what is socialism and even called it communism light. That is an absolute distraction from what we're discussing here today. So don't come here talking about the dangers of socialism. You better come here and talk about what you're going to do to strengthen our democracy. How you're going to make sure that we have an education system for all of the children, rather than an education system that is being torn apart by the President of the United States. Talk about how people stop sleeping on the street, homeless, while we're cutting Section 8 programs in housing. Oh, we could go on about this all day, but I reserve the balance of my time so I can rest a bit, let them say what they want to say so I can come back and tell them what they need to hear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If there is someone who has seen the horrors of socialism up close within the Democratic Party, is in the House, and it's the Honorable Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And I would love for you to support this resolution specifically, because, Madam Waters, for decades you traveled to Cuba dozens of times to visit Fidel Castro personally, whom you consider your friend. Congresswoman Waters was in Havana, and she saw the destruction of biblical proportions that Castro caused on that island, who at the time in 1960 had the highest per capita income in the Western Hemisphere. At that time, Madam Waters knew that thousands and thousands of Cubans were escaping on a raft, exposing their lives and their children to be eaten by the sharks. She knew that Afro-Cubans were being beaten on the streets of Havana, discriminated against by Fidel Castro, Mr. Speaker. And for that reason, I am bringing up all these facts, because Madam Waters knew that the Cuban jails were full of political prisoners, and the Cubans did not have the same privileges that we are having right now to speak freely. At that time, Madam Waters never raised her voice to denounce the horrors of socialism, Mr. Speaker. For that reason, I am asking Madam Waters.
For what purpose the lady from California seeks recognition?
I move to take her words down.
Order. The House will be in order. The lady from California, for what purpose do you rise?
I rise to take down her words.
Objection is heard. The objection is withdrawn. The gentlelady from Florida, her request is accepted with unanimous consent. The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Arkansas.
The House is not in order.
Gentleman is correct. The House is not in order. With any luck, we'll get back to business. Please take your conversations off the floor of the House. The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
There are many people on this floor who have seen the horrors of communism. They have been to Cuba. They have been friends with Fidel Castro. They have seen the jails full of Cuban prisoners. They have seen people preparing rafts to die in the middle of the ocean, eaten by sharks. There are many people in the Democratic Party who have witnesses that and have not said anything. So for their reason, Mr. Speaker, I am asking some of my colleagues on that side of the aisle, many of them who are very good friends of mine, to understand that denouncing communism and socialism is the right thing to do for the Democratic Party. And if some of the highest, most important members of the Democratic Party on that side of the aisle were to vote with us, they would be doing a very favor to the Republic, and not only that, to the Democrat.
That right there, that's what losing an argument looks like. When the facts hit too hard, the goal isn't to respond, it's to shut the other person up. Let's break it down, because this wasn't just a rebuttal. This was a full dismantling. First, the claim, socialism is just harmless government programs and everyone else is confused. But people who've actually lived through it, they're not confused at all. And that's where everything shifts. Maria Salazar doesn't deal in theory. She brings reality. The desperate escapes, the dangerous crossings, people risking everything just for a shot at freedom most politicians take for granted. That's not a talking point, that's lived history. And then came the moment that changed the room. She connects the dots, calls out past ties, past positions, and forces the conversation into uncomfortable territory. You could feel it instantly. The tension spikes, the noise starts, the interruptions roll in. Because that's what happens when the conversation hits something real. The reaction says everything. When voices get louder and the gavel starts banging, it's not about order, it's about control, about stopping a line of argument that's getting too close to the truth. Moments ago, it was confidence. Then the facts landed, and suddenly it's finger-pointing and demands to shut it down. That contrast? That's the story. At the end of the day, this wasn't just a clash of opinions, it was a clash between narrative and reality. And when those two collide, the reaction tells you exactly who's uncomfortable. So what do you think? Was that fair game, or did it go too far?